The room reeks of sweat, incense, and fear. You can almost taste it in the back of your throat as you stand in the royal chambers of Madrid's Alcazar. The air feels heavy, pressing down on everyone present, as if the walls themselves know something unnatural has just entered the world. Queen Mariana of Austria lies slumped against blood-streaked sheets, her golden hair plastered to her face with sweat. Her breath comes in sharp, panicked gasps. In her trembling arms, she cradles a newborn wrapped in silk. But there is no joy here, no proud announcement of a royal heir. The silence is so thick you can hear the soft drip of wax from the towering candles. The midwives stare, frozen. The court physicians shift uncomfortably, their faces pale, their eyes refusing to meet the queen's. One of them clears his throat as if to speak, but no words come. And then you see why. The child moves slightly in the queen's arms, his head lolling unnaturally to one side, far too heavy for his frail neck to hold. His skin is sickly pale, almost translucent under the candlelight. His eyes, large and unfocused, stare into nothingness. His mouth hangs open, unable to close, his jaw jutting forward grotesquely, his swollen tongue slipping past his lips with every shallow breath. The sound he makes is not the sharp cry of a healthy infant. It is a wet, ragged gurgle, the kind of sound that makes every hair on your body stand on end. One of the midwives flinches, crosses herself quickly, and whispers, "Monstruo, monster." Another shakes her head sharply, her own voice shaking. "No, not a monster, a demon. God is punishing us." No one dares to correct her. Even the priests standing near the door avoid looking directly at the child. Their prayers now muttered faster, almost desperate, as if words alone can drive away whatever curse has just been born. The queen does not speak. Her eyes are wide, glistening with tears, her lips trembling as she stares at the infant in her arms. She holds him close, almost protectively, yet you can see the terror in her grip, as if letting him go might unleash something she cannot control. The infant's vacant eyes drift lazily, and for a fleeting second they roll toward you. You feel it, that cold, creeping sensation crawling up your spine, the kind that makes you want to step back but keeps you rooted in place. It feels as if those empty eyes are not looking at you, but through you, as if something buried deep inside that frail body is aware, watching, waiting. The queen whispers a prayer under her breath, but her voice breaks, cracked by exhaustion and fear. Her fingers tighten around the child, as if she too wonders what she is holding. And in that silent, suffocating room, among nobles too afraid to speak and priests who cannot stop praying, you realize why some would later say that this was not just the birth of a king. This was the night Spain welcomed a curse. This was the night a queen gave birth to what many would come to call a demon. The room where the cursed child cries seems to vanish as you are pulled backward through time, as if history itself is unraveling to show you how this nightmare began. Centuries before this night, the Habsburgs were not cursed. They were adored, feared, and envied. You stand in the grand court of Charles I, the first Habsburg king of Spain. Gold catches the light everywhere, glittering in the hair of noblewomen, shining on the armor of guards, and flowing through the endless corridors of power. The smell of fresh waxed floors and expensive perfumes fills the air. This is the beating heart of the greatest empire the world has ever known, and you can feel it, the confidence, the arrogance, the absolute belief that God himself has chosen this family to rule the earth. Ships return from the New World, their hulls groaning with silver and gold ripped from the soil of distant lands. You hear the roar of crowds as treasure-laden carts roll through city streets, feeding an empire that believes it will never fall. In Madrid, artists immortalize this glory. Velázquez paints kings as if they are gods walking among men. El Greco covers cathedral walls with visions of heaven. Cervantes writes of dreams and madness while poets sing praises to the divine right of the Spanish crown. The Habsburgs look unstoppable, a dynasty kissed by heaven. But even here, amid the splendor, there is a shadow. You notice it in the whispered conversations behind closed doors, in the glances that priests exchange when no one is watching. Because the Habsburgs' greatness does not come only from war or wealth. It comes from something far more dangerous, the deliberate bending of nature itself. The royal family has decided that no outsider is worthy of their blood. Cousins marry cousins. Uncles wed nieces. The family tree does not branch. It coils inward, tighter and tighter, feeding on itself like a serpent devouring its own tail. They call it preserving divine blood, but in quiet corners of monasteries and churches, priests mutter that this is not piety at all. This is not God's will. They whisper when they are certain no one can hear. They are breaking the natural order. They are inviting demons into their bloodline. And yet the church allows it. Power speaks louder than scripture. When canon law forbids such marriages, the Habsburgs simply ask the Pope for a blessing, and they get it. Papal dispensations signed in Rome give holy approval to marriages that the Bible itself condemns. No one dares speak too loudly against it. Those who try are silenced, sometimes by threats, sometimes by the cold, unrelenting hands of the Spanish Inquisition. The people pray for their rulers, but privately they wonder. Why do so many royal children die in infancy? Why do some heirs grow sickly, weak, or strangely shaped? Midwives whisper about infants born too deformed to live, carried away before anyone could see them. Even in the golden halls of the empire, there are murmurs of divine anger. A family chosen by God would not suffer such things. They say, something is wrong, something unholy. But the Habsburgs do not stop. They cannot. Each marriage is a calculated move to keep their kingdoms united, to keep their hands wrapped tightly around the world. And so they continue to gamble with the very foundation of life, stacking generation upon generation of the same blood, believing that their power will protect them from the consequences. But power does not protect anyone from nature. The cracks are already forming. Kings with unstable minds, princes who cannot walk properly, children born frail and strange. The signs are there, but no one dares speak them aloud. And so the Habsburgs continue, blind to the doom they are crafting with their own hands. Every wedding feast, every whispered papal blessing, every proud declaration of divine right is another step toward this night, toward the gasping child in the Queen's arms. This is not an accident. It is the price of arrogance paid in flesh. The Habsburgs traded the future of their empire for a throne built on rotting blood. And tonight you are staring at the proof. We dig up truths others hide. If you are still watching and have not subscribed to Cursed Chronicles, ask yourself why you would let this story vanish like so many others have. Are you truly comfortable letting history's darkest truths be forgotten? If you refuse to join us, at least explain in the comments why this cursed history doesn't deserve to be remembered. The glittering empire begins to tarnish. You can feel it as the years roll forward. The golden halls no longer echo with the same confidence. The treasures from the New World no longer blind the world with their brilliance. The great Habsburg machine, once unstoppable, begins to falter under the weight of its own sins. The first Real crack appears with Philip III. You watch him ascend the throne, a man born into glory but lacking the fire of his ancestors. His reign feels different, hollow. The once razor-sharp leadership of Charles I and Philip II is gone, replaced by a king more interested in religious rituals and court ceremonies than the actual ruling of an empire. And then there is his body, soft, fragile, lacking the strength you would expect from a king who rules half the known world. His face carries the unmistakable mark of the Habsburg line, but it is sharper now, the jaw more pronounced, the features slightly distorted, as though the bloodline is beginning to protest the repeated unions of kin. Behind palace doors, you see him often lost in thought, staring into nothing. His counselors whisper that he struggles to focus on state affairs, that decisions take too long, that he avoids the pressures of rule. Instead, he spends hours in prayer or indulging in hunting trips while ministers govern in his name. The empire, still vast and rich, hides his incompetence for now. But in private, ambassadors send reports to their home countries, quiet warnings that Spain is no longer as invincible as it once was. And yet, this is only the beginning. The true weight of the curse falls with Philip IV. When you first see him, the signs are unmistakable. His portraits, carefully painted by Velázquez, attempt to show strength and dignity, but standing before him in person, you notice what the painter's brush hides. His jaw juts forward more severely than his father's, his features stretched in unnatural ways. He is often tired, his body weaker than his youthful image suggests, and his mind, it drifts. He tries to carry the mantle of his forefathers, but his decisions are clumsy, his judgment clouded. Spain, once feared, begins to lose ground under his rule. Territories are slipping away, rebellions spread, and wars drain the empire's strength. You hear it in the quiet conversations of his court. Doubt, fear, the unspoken thought that the Habsburg line, chosen by God, is failing. And yet, even with this growing disaster, Philip IV makes the most fateful choice of all. In the name of preserving his bloodline, he marries his own niece, Mariana of Austria. You see her arrive, young and hopeful, unaware that her body is about to become the final battleground of a centuries-long experiment in royal arrogance. At first, there is excitement. A new marriage means hope for healthy heirs, for the continuation of the great Habsburg dynasty. But as the years pass, hope turns to quiet dread. You stand in the dimly lit corridors of the palace, watching servants carry away swaddled bundles in the dead of night. You know what they are carrying: children who did not survive, their bodies too fragile, too malformed to be shown to the world. Miscarriages become common, whispered about with fear. Court physicians work tirelessly, but nothing can change what is happening. The family's blood has been pushed too far, and nature is pushing back with a vengeance. Rumors spread like smoke through the court. Some say God has turned his face from the Habsburgs. Others, in hushed voices, say worse, that the family's obsession with keeping its blood pure has brought something unnatural into their line, something no priest can bless away. Mariana herself feels it. You see her praying for hours, clutching rosary beads until her fingers turn white. She writes letters that she hides from everyone, letters filled with guilt and despair, as if she believes she is cursed. Every failed pregnancy deepens her terror. Every malformed child feels like a message from something greater, something furious. By now, even the bravest courtiers speak carefully, their words chosen with caution. No one dares say it outright, but the fear is clear in their faces. The once great Habsburg dynasty is rotting from the inside. And in the queen's womb, something final is forming, the last desperate hope of a dying bloodline. The whispers grow louder with each passing month. The court prays for a healthy heir, but you can feel it, the dread, the certainty that what is coming will not be salvation. It will be the culmination of every mistake, every sin, every marriage made in defiance of nature. The birth that will end this dynasty is already written in her body. We dig up truths others hide. If you are still watching and have not subscribed to Cursed Chronicles, why? You are hearing the story of a family that traded its soul for power, and you are one of the few who know the truth. Are you really willing to let stories like this disappear into silence? If you won't join us, then at least tell us in the comments why this cursed history doesn't matter to you. The night of the birth is heavy with dread. Even before the first scream echoes through the Alcazar of Madrid, the palace feels cursed. Servants whisper prayers under their breath as they move through the dimly lit halls, their shadows stretching long and trembling across the walls. Candles burn low, dripping wax like tears, while outside, the wind moans against the ancient stone as though the building itself knows what is coming. You find yourself in the royal birthing chamber. The air is suffocating, thick with incense and the metallic scent of blood. The queen's cries rise and fall, drawn out, agonized, filling the room with a sound that makes your chest tighten. Labor has gone on for hours, far longer than anyone expected. Some say too long, long enough for dark forces to take notice. Mariana grips the sheets until her knuckles whiten, her face contorted in pain, her hair plastered to her temples with sweat. Her eyes flicker wildly, and more than once she seems to stare past the midwives, past the physicians, into some unseen space above her. In a hoarse whisper, she mutters words that freeze the room. Dark angels. They're watching. The midwives exchange glances, their hands trembling as they work. One priest steps forward, clutching a crucifix, muttering hurried prayers in Latin. But Mariana's gaze does not move. Her pupils are wide, her lips trembling as if she truly sees something no one else can. The labor grows worse. Hours stretch into what feels like an eternity. The screams are not only of pain now but of terror, almost animal in their desperation. The queen's body convulses, her breathing ragged, and the midwives begin to fear for her life. And then, at last, it happens. The chamber falls into a tense silence broken only by Mariana's exhausted, shallow breaths. The child is delivered, but there is no triumphant cry, no joyful announcement to the court. Instead, there is a sound that silences everyone. It is not the sharp wail of a newborn but a strange, wet, gurgling rasp, almost like air forcing its way through waterlogged lungs. One of the midwives flinches, stepping back. Another crosses herself quickly, murmuring something under her breath. "Did you hear that?" A whisper breaks the silence. "Yes." Another midwife answers, her voice shaking. "That doesn't sound human." The child shudders in the hands of the physician, his body twitching weakly as if struggling against its own existence. For a moment no one moves. Even the priests hesitate, their prayers faltering. And then the physician hands the baby to the queen. Mariana takes him, her arms trembling as she looks down. Her lips part but no sound escapes. Her eyes widen, and for a moment, it seems she cannot breathe. Now you see him for the first time. The candlelight reveals everything the court will later try to hide. His head is enormous for a newborn, later measured at a circumference far larger than any healthy infant's. His skull bulges unevenly, the soft plates failing to close properly, leaving open gaps beneath the skin. Physicians will later write that his fontanelle, the soft crown of a baby's head, took years to harden, leaving him vulnerable to constant infections and fevers throughout childhood. His jaw juts grotesquely forward, so exaggerated that his mouth cannot close, his lips pulled permanently apart. His tongue, swollen and heavy, slides out with every strained breath. His eyes, glassy and unfocused, drift lazily, unable to hold on to any object for long. His limbs look frail, unnaturally thin compared to the swollen size of his head. A physician attempts to maintain composure, but you see his throat tighten as he looks at the child's face. His notes, written later in careful medical script, will describe severe mandibular deformity and significant weakness of the extremities. But no one in the room needs medical terms. They can see it, and some refuse to believe this is just nature's cruelty. A midwife whispers, "This is punishment." A priest glares at her, but he does not correct her. His own eyes are locked on the child, and you can see the doubt creeping into his faith. The queen pulls the baby close, her hands shaking. For a moment, her maternal instinct overrides her fear, but tears spill down her cheeks as she whispers a prayer. Her voice cracks, almost pleading. One of the older physicians tries to reassure her, muttering that the boy is strong enough to live, but the way his eyes dart to the floor betrays him. He knows. Everyone in this room knows. The child who will be king is not a savior for this dying dynasty. He is its final sentence. You look around at the courtiers and attendants standing rigid, trying to hide their expressions, and you see what they are too afraid to say aloud. The curse of the Habsburgs has taken form. It has a face now, and it is staring blankly at the world through cloudy, vacant eyes. If this doesn't convince you that truth is stranger and darker than fiction, nothing will. But don't just watch in silence. Hit subscribe now, or at least tell me in the comments why you would rather turn away from cursed history when it is staring you in the face. The child who would one day wear a crown spends his early years not as a prince, but as a prisoner of his own body. Days blur into nights inside the darkened royal chambers where physicians, priests, and attendants hover constantly, not in reverence, but in silent dread. Every breath he takes feels like a battle, and you can sense that everyone around him wonders whether the boy will even survive long enough to grow. Charles does not cry like other children. His sounds are strained, wet, almost animalistic, escaping through the half-open mouth his malformed jaw cannot close. His tongue, heavy and swollen, lolls between his lips. His eyes wander aimlessly, unfocused, as if his mind struggles to connect with the world around him. By the time most children run and play, Charles still lies confined to his bed, weak and almost motionless. His head, still abnormally large for his small frame, weighs him down like a stone. When nurses try to sit him upright, his neck muscles tremble violently, unable to bear the burden. Physicians note in their records that his fontanelle remains soft far beyond infancy, the skull plates refusing to close, leaving him dangerously vulnerable to infections that return again and again, each fever threatening to end his life. Years pass, but improvement comes slowly, painfully. Charles does not take his first unsteady steps until he is 8 years old. Even then, it is not walking in any true sense of the word. His legs are thin, brittle, trembling under his own weight. Every movement requires attendants to steady him, their hands gripping his arms as he takes clumsy, stumbling steps, his oversized head lolling forward. Speech is no easier. His jaw, grotesquely misaligned, makes forming words nearly impossible. His attempts to talk come out as garbled noises only the most patient attendants can interpret, and even then, most of what he tries to say is lost. Eating is a daily ordeal. Solid food is almost impossible to chew, his jaw too weak to grind it, his tongue too swollen to push it back. Court physicians, desperate to keep him alive, design crude feeding tubes and prepare soft herbal mixtures to force down his throat. Leeches are applied frequently in an attempt to balance the bad humors they believe plague his frail body, leaving small round scars along his limbs. Herbal concoctions of bitter roots and strange powders are spooned into him, sometimes causing more pain than relief. The court physicians document everything with cold precision: chronic digestive failure, periodic choking fits, severe constipation alternating with violent purging. Each entry reads less like the records of a prince's health and more like the desperate notes of men fighting a losing battle against nature itself. But while the physicians struggle to keep his body alive, it is his mother's mind that truly unravels. Mariana spends hours each day at her son's side, watching him struggle with the simplest movements, her face pale, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Her attendants whisper that she often refuses to eat, praying instead, her hands clenched tightly around rosary beads until her fingers swell. In private letters she hides from the court, she writes words filled with grief and guilt. She believes she is being punished, that God is striking her through her son for the sins of her family, for her marriage to Philip, for the arrogance of their bloodline. "My womb has betrayed me," she writes in one, the ink smudged where her tears have fallen. "If this is God's punishment, I accept it, but spare my child." The priests are summoned, not for prayer alone, but for something darker. At night, in secret, they perform rituals that no one dares speak of openly. You can picture it now: candles burning low, shadows flickering across the walls as priests whisper Latin prayers, sprinkling holy water over the child. Their faces are tense, their eyes darting nervously as if they, too, fear what they are confronting. Because whispers have already begun to spread through the palace. Whispers that the boy is not merely deformed, not merely sickly. Some believe he is possessed. Midwives tell stories in hushed voices of the night of his birth, of the strange sound that came from his lungs. Courtiers exchange glances when the boy's vacant eyes stare too long at nothing, as if looking into something they cannot see. The priests never confirm these fears, but the exorcisms continue in secret, sometimes lasting late into the night, leaving the child exhausted and the queen pale and trembling. Yet through all this, Mariana refuses to turn away. She feeds him with her own hands when attendants grow tired. She prays at his bedside even when she knows no prayer can fix the blood in his veins. Her love becomes an obsession, a desperate shield against the horror of what her son has become. But deep down you can feel it, even she knows the truth. This child is not simply sick. He is the living evidence of centuries of arrogance and sin. Every movement, every sound, every fever is a reminder that the Habsburgs have damned themselves. And as Charles grows, painfully, slowly, into adolescence, the fear within the court grows with him. Because if this is the future king of Spain, then the future itself may already be lost. If this doesn't convince you that truth is stranger and darker than fiction, I don't know what will. But don't just sit in silence. Hit subscribe now, or tell me in the comments why you would rather turn away from cursed history when it's staring you in the face. The boy who cannot walk without help, who cannot speak without choking on his own swollen tongue, is crowned king at just 4 years old. You stand among the silent crowd gathered in the grand hall of the Alcazar, and even here, beneath the painted ceilings, beneath the heavy gold banners meant to signal triumph, there is a tension that no one can ignore. The ceremony is carefully staged to hide the truth. The throne has been modified, discreetly altered so that the boy can sit upright without collapsing under the weight of his own head. Its back is higher, its sides padded, as if it were designed not for a ruler, but for an invalid. His robes are tailored to hide the frailness of his limbs, the silk pooling around his thin body like a costume draped over a fragile doll. The crown, too, has been changed. Though no one dares say it aloud, it is lighter than those worn by his ancestors, its inner band fitted with soft padding to keep it from slipping off his oversized skull. But still, attendants stand close, ready to steady it should his trembling neck give way. When the time comes for the boy to take the oaths of kingship, there is a moment of suffocating silence. Everyone knows he cannot speak them clearly. His mouth opens, and only broken, wet syllables emerge, garbled sounds that no one can understand. So, another voice speaks for him, a minister reciting the sacred words in his place, his tone loud, confident, almost defiant, as if volume alone can make the deception believable. But the illusion is thin. The foreign ambassadors in attendance are not fooled. The French ambassador writes in his report, a letter that will later circulate in hushed whispers across Europe. The child they call king appears to be a body without a soul. His eyes are vacant, his movements stiff, as though he does not understand what he is. Spain calls this a coronation, but I saw only a tragedy paraded in gold. The English ambassador is no kinder. In his private notes, he calls Charles a mockery of nature, placed upon a throne by desperate hands. The ceremony ends, and the court erupts in carefully rehearsed applause. But as the boy is carried away, his head slumping slightly against his shoulder, you can see the nobles exchange glances. Some look away in pity, others smirk quietly, their loyalty already beginning to crack. The empire's enemies notice, too. Spain, once a fortress of power, begins to crumble. Wars that would once have been fought with steel and strategy are now lost to hesitation and weakness. The boy king cannot lead armies, cannot inspire soldiers, cannot even sign his own decrees without attendants guiding his hand. The war against France over the Spanish Netherlands bleeds resources dry. Territories are chipped away piece by piece as foreign powers circle, sensing blood in the water. The mighty Spanish Armada, once the terror of Europe, falls into disrepair, ships left rotting in their harbors. Economically, the empire rots from within. Silver shipments from the Americas grow scarce, inflation surges, and corruption seeps into every level of government. Nobles who once feared the wrath of a strong monarch now mock him behind closed doors, some openly referring to him as El Hechizado, the bewitched king. Others whisper something worse, calling him El Rey Demonio, the demon king. In private writings, one noble sneers, "We are ruled by a child who cannot rule himself. This is not God's chosen king. This is the Habsburg curse made flesh." And yet, despite all this, the charade continues. Court painters still depict Charles as regal, his deformities softened or hidden entirely, his posture corrected with artistic lies. Official documents still proclaim Spain's greatness, even as its colonies weaken, its armies scatter, and its enemies carve away pieces of its glory. But you can feel it, standing here in these fading halls. The golden age is over. What was once the greatest empire on earth is unraveling thread by thread. And it all leads back to this child, sitting slumped on a throne too large for him, his vacant eyes staring past his own crumbling world. Think about this. You are watching the fall of one of history's greatest empires, and it is all collapsing under the weight of one cursed child. You can help keep stories like this alive by subscribing to Cursed Chronicles, Or maybe you think history this tragic doesn't deserve to be remembered. If so, say why in the comments. Tell us why you would let the memory of this cursed empire fade into silence. The boy who could barely hold his own crown is now a man, but time has done nothing to free him from his body's prison. Instead, it has only deepened his frailty. His legs remain weak, his jaw more distorted, his health ever declining. And yet, despite all this, the survival of the Habsburg dynasty rests entirely on him. The court grows desperate. The once great empire teeters on the edge of collapse, and with no heir, its future hangs by a single, fraying thread. There is only one hope left: marriage. The first attempt at salvation comes with Marie-Louise of Orleans, the young French princess brought to Spain in a lavish procession meant to signal hope to the people. From the outside, it is a triumph, a powerful political alliance, a royal wedding celebrated with extravagant feasts and shimmering tapestries. But when the ceremonies end and the doors close, reality strips away the illusion. Marie-Louise is only 17, full of life and beauty, but her letters, the ones she hides carefully from the Spanish court, reveal the horror she finds behind the palace walls. "I was not prepared for this," she writes to a confidant in France. "He is kind in his way, but his body is failing him. His eyes, they are so empty, as if he is here but not here. I cannot bear to look at him without feeling dread." At first, she tries to be dutiful. She does what is expected of her, but her words grow darker with each passing month. "I pray every night for strength, but I feel trapped in a tomb. This palace is not a home. It is a place of sickness and whispers, and I am drowning in it." The pressure on her is relentless. The court expects her to give Spain an heir, and every month without pregnancy deepens the panic. Physicians whisper that Charles's body cannot do what a man's body should. Rumors spread quietly through the servants that the king's attempts to fulfill his duties as a husband end in failure. His frail body too weak, his condition too severe. Marie-Louise begins to wither under the strain. Her letters speak of constant illness, headaches, and fainting spells. Some claim she begins refusing food, sinking into depression. Others whisper something darker, that she may have been slowly poisoned, not by Charles, but by factions within the court desperate to replace her with another woman who might succeed where she could not. By the time she dies at only 26, her body thin and weakened, the court mourns her publicly. But in private, many breathe a quiet sigh of relief. Spain still has no heir, but at least now they can try again. And so they do. The second marriage is even more desperate. The bride is Mariana of Neuburg, chosen for one reason alone: her family's reputation for fertility. She is young, healthy, and it is said that children are abundant in her bloodline. The court convinces itself that she will finally give them the heir they need, the child who will save the crumbling empire. But this hope is built on lies, and everyone close to Charles knows it. Behind closed doors, physicians share their findings in hushed tones. Charles is almost certainly sterile. His condition is too severe, his body too damaged by generations of inbreeding to produce an heir. Yet these truths never leave the inner circle. No one dares to speak them aloud, because to admit it is to admit the dynasty's death. The marriage proceeds, another elaborate spectacle to distract the people from the truth. Once again, Charles tries to fulfill his role, but the same failures repeat. Mariana writes no desperate letters like Marie-Louise. She is colder, more calculating, but her frustration leaks into her behavior. She begins involving herself in court politics, aligning with factions that hope to control what will happen when Charles inevitably dies childless. The court becomes a battlefield of secret alliances, plots, and betrayals. Nobles take sides, some pushing for France to inherit the Spanish crown, others for Austria. Spies trade information for gold. Every failed attempt at an heir pushes Spain closer to civil unrest, closer to foreign invasion. And through it all, Charles watches from his throne, his face pale, his body deteriorating further each year. He knows what they whisper behind his back: the demon king, the bewitched king, the king who cannot give Spain a future. ***. The panic is everywhere now. It fills the palace like a stench no incense can hide. The courtiers' smiles grow thinner, the priests' prayers more desperate. Everyone understands what they cannot say aloud. The Habsburg line is ending, and this fragile man is its last, cursed breath. Think about this. You are watching the fall of one of history's greatest empires, caused not by armies or invasions, but by the frail body of a single man born of pride and arrogance. You can help keep stories like this alive by subscribing to Cursed Chronicles. Or maybe you think history this tragic doesn't deserve to be remembered. Tell me in the comments why you would let the memory of this cursed dynasty fade into silence. The man who was once a frail boy king now withers before your eyes, his body collapsing in on itself as if it has finally surrendered to the curse that shaped him. By his final years, Charles II of Spain is no longer a man, but a husk kept alive by ritual, superstition, and desperation. The records of his physicians, written in carefully measured words, reveal the grim truth. His body, already broken, begins to decay while he is still alive. Seizures shake him violently, leaving him gasping on the palace floors as attendants rush to hold him down, terrified that his brittle bones might snap under the convulsions. His legs, which had always struggled to bear his weight, stiffen and weaken further, progressive paralysis creeping upward until even sitting upright becomes a painful ordeal. Wounds appear on his skin, wounds that do not heal. The court physicians note with growing alarm the smell of infection that lingers around him. Necrotic sores eating at his flesh, slow-rotting patches that turn black before their eyes. They apply poultices, herbal compresses, and leeches, but nothing works. His body, weakened from birth, is rotting from the inside out. And still, they force him to endure endless treatments. Physicians drain his blood repeatedly, claiming it will cleanse the bad humors. Priests bring relics and holy water to bless his body. Every remedy fails. Every ritual leaves him weaker. The priest's writings, those never meant for the public, carry a more chilling description. One confessor writes in his private notes, "He is no longer a living man, but a corpse that breathes. A body without spirit. Truly, he is the living dead." Another, more superstitious, wonders if his soul has already left him, leaving only flesh that moves by habit, cursed to linger until the sins of his family are repaid. As his condition worsens, his appearance changes in ways that shock even those who have grown accustomed to his deformities. His skin becomes pale and waxy, stretched tightly over bone. His lips crack and peel, his eyes sink deep into his skull, the vacant gaze now even more hollow. Witnesses whisper that when he stares too long, it feels as if he is looking through them, not at them, as if whatever is inside him is not human at all. Outside the palace walls, the common people talk freely. Rumors spread like wildfire through the streets and villages. They say he was never truly human, that he was born as punishment for the sins of his ancestors. Some call him El Hijo del Diablo, the devil's child. Others whisper that the plague, famine, and war afflicting Spain are not coincidences, but divine punishment sent through this cursed king. Frightened peasants tell stories by candlelight of how his birth cry sounded more like a beast than a baby, how no healthy air could ever come from him because no human blood flows in his veins. In the countryside, mothers scare children into obedience by warning them, "If you sin, the demon king will come for you in the night." Even nobles who mock him in secret begin to hedge their words. They call him cursed, bewitched, touched by the devil. Few dare to say this aloud within the palace, but when courtiers cross themselves as he passes, you can see the truth in their eyes. Inside the palace, Mariana prays more desperately than ever. She brings in priests to perform secret rituals late at night. Some claim they attempt exorcisms again, believing that the darkness consuming his body might be more than sickness. The rituals grow stranger, more frantic, as if the priests themselves no longer fully believe in what they are doing, as if they too wonder if he is beyond salvation. And Charles? He sits slumped on his throne, trembling, drooling, his body collapsing piece by piece, yet still alive, still watching as Spain disintegrates around him. You can almost feel his silent suffering, though no one knows what thoughts linger behind those dull eyes. Does he understand the empire is dying with him? Does he know the world whispers that he is the devil's punishment made flesh? Or has he long since retreated inward, leaving behind only a hollow body, exactly as the priests describe, a living dead man, waiting for death to finally claim him? We are giving you the raw truth, the things textbooks sanitize, the darkness history tries to erase. If you can listen to this cursed tale and still not support Cursed Chronicles, then at least have the courage to say in the comments why history like this doesn't deserve your attention. The final days of Charles II are not quiet, dignified, or merciful. They are a slow and public unmaking, a body unraveling in front of those who can no longer pretend he is anything but a curse made flesh. The palace is heavy with the stench of sickness. You can smell it long before you reach his chambers. A sour, rotting odor that clings to the walls and drifts through the corridors like a warning. Inside, the room is dim, curtains drawn to block the sunlight that blinds his failing eyes. Candles burn low, their flames wavering as if reluctant to remain in this place. Charles lies in his bed, surrounded by physicians and priests who whisper instructions and prayers over the wheezing sound of his breath. His body has wasted away, his limbs little more than bone beneath translucent skin. His once swollen face has sunken, leaving hollow cheeks and dark, bruised circles around his dull, wandering eyes. Drool slides constantly from his half-open mouth, staining the sheets beneath his head. The seizures come frequently now, violent and terrifying. His thin arms jerk uncontrollably, his legs stiffen as attendants struggle to hold him still without snapping his fragile bones. His jaw locks during these convulsions, making him choke on his own saliva until physicians pry his mouth open with metal tools. His eyes roll upward during these fits, exposing only the whites, and more than one attendant has whispered under their breath that he no longer looks human in these moments, but something unnatural, something struggling against its own flesh. Blindness begins to take him in the final weeks. His eyes, already clouded and unfocused, lose the last traces of recognition. He stares past everyone, unseeing, his lips twitching as though murmuring words that never come. His skin turns waxy and pale, blotched with blackened sores that refuse to heal. The physicians write their last observations in clinical, detached words, but even their notes betray their horror. The body decomposes while still breathing, gangrenous patches along the legs, a general wasting that suggests the blood itself is corrupted. The priests grow more desperate. Exorcism prayers are whispered at night when they think no one will hear, not because they believe they can save him, but because they fear what will happen when he finally dies. Some confess privately that they dread his soul will not ascend at all, that it might remain trapped in the walls of the palace like a shadow, a restless curse bound to the dynasty that created him. And then, after one final convulsion that leaves him trembling and gasping, Charles falls still. His final breath escapes not as a sigh, but as a long, rattling groan, as if even death struggles to claim him. But even in death, his body tells the truth of the Habsburg curse. The physicians, under strict orders, perform an autopsy. Secretly, but the details leak out, carried by whispers through the court. What they find shocks even those who thought they knew the extent of his suffering. His body is described as deformed in every possible way. His intestines are blackened and filled with fluid, his lungs shriveled and corroded, his heart described as the size of a peppercorn, his head swollen with fluid, his testicles described in one physician's notes as small as a child's. These findings confirm what many already suspected. He was never capable of producing an heir, never capable of saving the dynasty he was born to lead. But while his body finally gives in, the chaos his life leaves behind erupts instantly. Before his death, factions within the court had already manipulated his will, pulling him in every direction like vultures fighting over a carcass. Too weak to resist, too broken to understand the full weight of what he signed, Charles left a final testament that handed Spain, and all its vast colonies, to the Bourbon dynasty of France. The moment this decision becomes public, Europe ignites. Spain, once feared, is now little more than a prize for stronger nations to carve apart. The War of the Spanish Succession begins almost immediately, a brutal conflict that stretches across the continent. Former allies become enemies, old rivals strike, and the once great empire is reduced to a bargaining chip on the diplomatic tables of Europe. The redistribution of colonies follows soon after. Territories that Spain ruled for centuries are traded, stolen, or handed off as trophies. The empire that Charles's ancestors built with oceans of blood and gold unravels almost overnight, scattered to the winds by the decisions made in the final hours of a dying, cursed king. And just like that, the Habsburgs of Spain, a dynasty that once believed it was chosen by God himself to rule the world, ceases to exist. Its last king, a man who never truly ruled, leaves behind only a legacy of pity, disgust, and whispered curses. The grand halls that once rang with power now feel hollow, haunted. Because in the end, Charles II was not just the last king of his line. He was the living, breathing symbol of its doom. A dynasty that destroyed itself from within, leaving behind nothing but a ghost of glory and the stench of decay. We are giving you the raw truth, the things textbooks sanitize, the history most would rather forget. If you can listen to this cursed tale and still not support Cursed Chronicles, at least have the courage to say in the comments why history like this doesn't deserve your attention. The palace stands silent now, its once glorious halls echoing only with ghosts. The gold that once symbolized power now feels like an empty shell, glinting dully in the fading light of a dead empire. The dynasty that ruled half the world, that commanded armies, conquered continents, and bent kings to its will, has ended not with a final victory, but with the broken body of one cursed man lying cold in his bed. It is almost poetic, a story too precise, too cruel to be anything but fate. The Habsburgs believed themselves chosen by God. They believed their blood was too sacred to mix with that of ordinary mortals. But power built on arrogance rots from within. Generation after generation, they ignored the warnings written in the frail bodies of their children, convincing themselves that no price was too high to keep their throne intact. And this was the final cost. A boy born twisted and broken. A man who could not walk without help, who could not speak clearly, who could barely eat or breathe without pain. A king who could never truly be a king. His suffering was not just personal. It was the physical manifestation of his family's greed. Every convulsion, every infection, every failing organ was a reminder that their empire was built on a lie, that they had tried to defy nature itself, and nature had answered. The queen who once prayed for a miracle only gave birth to proof of her family's sins. She gave birth to a child so cursed that his very existence ended the dynasty. The golden age of Spain, the empire that stretched across oceans, died with him. Not because of invading armies, not because of foreign kings, but because of one truth no one in the palace dared speak aloud. They had destroyed themselves. The queen who gave birth to a demon gave birth to her family's doom, and with it, to the end of Spain's golden age. And now, centuries later, you stand here with the weight of that history pressing in on you. You have seen every moment of this curse unfold, step by step, from the glittering arrogance of the Habsburg rise, to the terror of that night in the Alcazar when a child gurgled his first unnatural breath, to the final rotting body of a king who was more symbol than man. This is not just history. This is a warning. Power bought with arrogance is always temporary. Pride always demands payment. You just witnessed one of history's darkest family curses unfold before your eyes. Cursed Chronicles exists to tell stories like this, the stories others are too afraid to tell, the truths history tries to bury. If you watched all this and still don't subscribe, at least explain why below. Because staying silent while stories like this fade into nothing is almost unforgivable. History does not disappear on its own. People let it disappear. Are you one of them? Or will you help keep these cursed truths alive?